Hello, AP Computer Science. We're going to be taking a look at the coding back question xyzMiddle. So the description is a little bit confusing. I think that's part of what makes this question so difficult. If you read the description, it tells you, does XYZ appear in the middle of a particular string, which seems fairly simple. But if you think about the problem in a little more detail, you realize there's some complexity. So it talks about to define the middle, and this is a good place to start. Get your definitions down, right? We'll say that the number of characters to the left and right of XYZ must differ by at most one. And it says at the end, this problem is harder than it looks. So you're in for a little bit of an adventure here. So if you, I think the way to have solved this problem is to sort of sit down with a bunch of examples and take a look at what is the middle of particular strings, and you'll start to notice some patterns as you investigate it. You'll notice that I think in particular there's a difference between the way an even numbered length string versus an odd length string gets their middle characters. So I'll show you what I mean. I have a random, this is Atom, it's a text editor, very useful. My son uses it for his coding. You can see he's got some code here. Pokemon battles, pretty great. So here's an example of this is an even numbered string. So this one's actually a little more complicated. Because what's the center of an even length string? So for example, is it DEF or is it EFG? So you'll notice that for DEF, there's 3 characters on the left and 4 characters on the right, and then EFG has sort of a similar situation, right? So ABCD, that's 4 characters on the left and 3 characters on the right. And according to the question, to define middle, we'll say that the number of characters to the left and right of XYZ must differ by at most by 1. So, if you're looking at an even numbered string, then either of these could be the middle. It could be this one, or it could be this one. Because in both of those cases, the number of characters on the left and right differ by at most 1. So that's the trick for the even numbered strings. There's actually 2 locations to check. You have to check this, and you have to check this. It turns out for an odd numbered string, if I just delete 1 character, we have a 9 length string. For an odd length, there's only 1. There it is, DEF. There's 3 on the left and 3 on the right. If you were to go over 1, there would be 2 on the left and 4 on the right. And same thing if you go over 1 the other way, right? So DEF, go over 1, it's 4 on the left and 2 on the right. So for odd length strings, you're just really right there in the middle. That's the only possible choice. So for my answer, I have sort of two separate things that I check about, like checking for an odd length string versus an even length string, and then I sort of compare them differently. But so now that you understand that basis of the question, let's just take a look at the answer. So here's my edge cases. So if the length is less than 3, there's no way that there's going to be an XYZ in that string, so I just automatically return false. And if the string's length is exactly 3, then I know that it is either XYZ or it's false. So I just return if the string is XYZ. And if it's not, then it returns false. And if it is, it returns true. So that solves a couple of edge cases. And then I don't have to worry about strings that are 3 or less. That's already taken care of, so I can do my calculations for finding the center of a string without worrying about going out of bounds. So then here I have a calculation for finding the midpoint of the string. It's just the length divided by 2, and that's actually an interesting calculation. Let's take a look and see what the results of that are. And again, how are you supposed to know this? I think really just sort of experimentation and looking at the problem and trying out some examples. So here I'll try some examples with you. So here's a string that's length 9. 9 divided by 2 in integer division is 4, right? It's 4.5, but then we cut off the decimal. So 4 would be E, which is literally the center in terms of the characters. And then we basically just need to get one to the left and one to the right to give us this. So in my solution, I do that with odd center. So this is the center of the string that is an odd length. So that's just after I've calculated the midpoint, it's just one to the left and one to the right. And you notice that it's plus 2. That's important because if I put in plus 1, remember the second number is not inclusive, it's exclusive. So I actually have to go 2 over to include one more character because it doesn't actually include this index. It's up to but not including that index. So that's why I had the plus 2. So that gives us our odd center. And now for an even numbered string, I'll go show you an example, put the J back in there. So if we do that calculation, this is length 10, then we can divide by 2 to get 5. So that means our center is here, and one to the left and one to the right of that is one of the candidates for center. So the odd center is also useful for even length strings. That calculation is the same, but we also need to get this center and check that one as well. So that's what I call the even center. So I've already got this part for even strings in the odd center. So now I just do an extra one to get this one. And that calculation is given by this right here. Check it out. This is the even center calculation where I just go back by 2 and plus 1 to include the right indices. And I'll leave it to you to, if you're still not sure about that, get out a piece of paper, do some examples, check out what these numbers give you, and go from there. So then basically I can just, once I've gotten these sort of chunks, I can check to see if I have an X, Y, Z in them. So if it's an odd string, then odd length string, then I can just check to see if the center, odd center is X, Y, Z. But if it's not odd, in other words it's even, then I can check if either one of these, odd center or even center, is X, Y, Z. If either of them are, then I return true. And notice how I just return this. I don't say if this is true, return true, else return false. This is going to be true or false, so you can just return that. Same with this more complex statement, the or. This will be true or false, this whole statement. So I can just return its trueness or falseness without having to say if it's true, return true, else return false. So that makes things a little bit tighter that way. So there you go. That's xyzMiddle. I hope that helped a lot. And I'm not sure how to turn off my, is it control? I don't know. We'll see. Bye. Peace.